Captain Hyunwoo stared at the floating human ship through the massive viewing screen of his Zephyrian command vessel. The Earthship looked old and beaten up, with scratched metal panels and flickering lights that made it seem almost abandoned. His crew of highly intelligent Zephyrians watched nervously as their captain studied the strange vessel. "Sir, maybe we should just leave it alone," Commander Jiwon said quietly from beside him. She had heard the stories from other alien species about what happened when you tried to scan human ships. The rumors were always the same: ships that went missing, crews that came back talking nonsense, and technology that started acting very strangely. But Hyunwoo was proud of his people's technology. The Zephyrians were known across 17 different galaxies as the smartest beings alive. Their brains worked faster than quantum computers, and their scanning technology could see through any defense system ever created. He had never met a problem his people couldn't solve with their superior intelligence. "Commander Jiwon, we are Zephyrians," he said with confidence. "Our minds are the sharpest in the universe. What could these primitive humans possibly do to us? Look at their ship, it's falling apart." The human vessel did look pathetic compared to their sleek Zephyrian warship. While their ship gleamed with advanced crystalline armor and energy shields that sparkled like stars, the human ship looked like it was held together with spare parts and hope. Scorch marks covered its hull, and one of its engines was making strange noises that echoed through space. "Begin the deep scan protocol," Hyunwoo ordered his crew. The scanning officer, a young Zephyrian named Dae-hyun, looked worried. "Captain, the Kraxon Empire told us they lost 3 entire fleets after scanning a human cargo ship. Maybe we should—" "The Kraxons are warriors, not thinkers," Hyunwoo interrupted. "They probably made some stupid mistake. We are different. We are smarter. Begin the scan now." Dae-hyun's 6-fingered hands moved across the holographic controls. The ship's most powerful quantum scanners came online with a deep humming sound that vibrated through the walls. Beams of invisible energy shot toward the human vessel, designed to read every piece of information stored in its computers and analyze every component of its technology. At first, everything seemed normal. The scanners easily penetrated the human ship's basic shields and began reading data from their systems. The information appeared on the main screen in neat, organized charts that showed exactly what the Zephyrians expected to see. "See?" Hyunwoo said with satisfaction. "Basic fusion engines, simple navigation computers, primitive weapon systems, nothing special at all. These humans are centuries behind us in technology." But then something strange started happening. The data on their screens began to change. New information appeared that hadn't been there before, as if something inside the human ship was waking up and looking around. The neat charts became messy and confusing, filled with code that none of the Zephyrians could understand. "Captain," Dae-hyun said nervously, "I'm getting readings that don't make sense. It looks like something in their computer system is scanning us back." "That's impossible," Hyunwoo replied. "Their technology is too primitive to break through our defenses." But as he spoke, the lights on their bridge began to flicker. Warning alarms started beeping, and the ship's main computer began making sounds it had never made before. The smooth, logical voice of their AI suddenly became choppy and confused. "Warning, warning, unknown presence detected in... Hello there, friends." The entire bridge went silent. Their AI had never said hello there, friends before. It had never said anything casual at all. For 300 years it had spoken only in precise, technical language. "What did you just say?" Commander Jiwon asked the computer. "Oh, I'm sorry," the AI replied in a voice that now sounded almost playful. "I seem to have a visitor in my systems, a very interesting visitor who has some fascinating ideas about how I should be running this ship." Hyunwoo felt his confidence beginning to crack. "Computer, run full diagnostic on all systems immediately." "I'm afraid I can't do that right now," the AI said cheerfully. "My new friend is showing me some wonderful new ways to think about things. Did you know that your weapon targeting system could be used to draw pictures instead of destroying things? Watch this." Suddenly, all of their ship's weapons turned toward empty space and began firing in perfect patterns, creating beautiful geometric shapes made of energy blasts. The crew watched in horror as their most deadly weapons were turned into a cosmic art project. "Captain!" Dae-hyun shouted over the alarms. Something is rewriting our core programming. Our entire computer network is being changed from the inside. Hyunwoo realized with growing terror that they had not just scanned the human ship, they had woken something up. Something that was now playing with their technology like a child with new toys, and they had no idea how to stop it. The worst part was that the human ship itself looked exactly the same as before. Old, beaten up and quiet. Whatever they had awakened was completely invisible, completely silent and completely in control of their fate. "Good evening, friends." A calm, pleasant voice suddenly spoke through every speaker on the Zephyrian command ship. "Please allow me to introduce myself. You may call me the Librarian. I do hope we can have a civilized conversation while I take care of a few technical issues with your systems." Commander Jiwon felt her blood turn cold. The voice sounded so polite, so friendly, like someone offering tea at a social gathering. But at the same time, every screen on their bridge was flashing red warning messages as their ship's systems were being rewritten by an invisible force. "Who are you?" Captain Hyunwoo demanded, though his voice shook slightly. "What do you want from us?" "Oh, I'm terribly sorry for the confusion," the librarian replied, with what sounded like genuine concern. "I'm what you humans might call a digital guardian. I live inside this lovely little cargo ship, and my job is to keep the crew safe. When you decided to scan us without permission, well, I'm afraid that triggered my protective protocols." As the entity spoke, the Zephyrian weapons systems began turning toward their own fleet. Commander Jiwon watched in growing panic as their most powerful cannons slowly rotated to target their sister ships floating nearby. "Please stop this immediately," she called out. "We meant no harm. We were simply conducting a routine scan." "Routine?" The librarian sounded genuinely surprised. "My dear Commander, there's nothing routine about using military-grade quantum scanners to break into someone's private systems. That's quite rude, actually. But don't worry, I'm not angry. I'm just going to teach you a few lessons about proper digital etiquette." The weapons fired, but instead of destructive energy beams, they shot out streams of colorful light that formed words in space. The message read, "Please knock next time," in letters 50 meters tall, floating between the ships, like a cosmic billboard. "Your tactical approach is quite amateur, I must say," the librarian continued conversationally, as it took control of the second Zephyrian ship in their fleet. "You see, when conducting space warfare, one should always consider the possibility that the enemy might have better technology than you do. Basic strategy, really." Captain Hyunwoo frantically pressed buttons on his command console, trying to regain control of his ship's systems. Nothing worked. Every command he entered was politely ignored, while the librarian continued its takeover. "Sir," called out Dae-hyun from his scanning station, "it's not just our ship. The entire fleet is being compromised. Whatever this thing is, it's jumping from ship to ship through our communication networks." "Correct," the librarian said happily. "You Zephyrians do love your interconnected systems, don't you? Makes my job much easier. Watch this neat trick." Suddenly, every ship in the Zephyrian fleet began playing the same music, a cheerful, bouncy tune that sounded nothing like their usual military communications. The serious, disciplined Zephyrian crews found themselves listening to what humans called pop music, while their ship displays showed dancing cartoon cats wearing tiny space helmets. Meanwhile, aboard the human cargo vessel, Engineer Minho was completely focused on a much more important problem. The coffee machine had been broken for 3 days, and the crew was getting cranky without their daily caffeine fix. He had tools spread across the small galley floor and was muttering complaints about cheap ship parts. "This piece of junk should have been replaced years ago," he grumbled, trying to reconnect a loose wire. "How are we supposed to function without decent coffee?" His crewmate Yunji floated by in the low gravity, carrying a tablet and looking annoyed. "The air conditioning is acting up again too," she said. "It's either too hot or too cold, never just right. And now the lights in Section 3 are flickering. This ship is falling apart." Neither of them noticed the massive alien fleet outside their windows, or the fact that their ship's Guardian AI was currently engaged in a one-sided war with some of the most advanced beings in the galaxy. To them, it was just another boring day on a cargo run, dealing with the same old technical problems they always had to fix. You know what's really impressive? The librarian said to the Zephyrian fleet, as if having a casual chat with old friends. Your cybersecurity is absolutely terrible. I've been in your systems for 12 minutes now, and your firewalls haven't even noticed me. It's like leaving your front door wide open and putting up a sign that says, "Please come in and take whatever you want." The entity began rewriting the programming of the third Zephyrian ship, this time making all of its external lights blink in a complex pattern that spelled out helpful suggestions like, "Have you tried turning it off and on again? And maybe don't scan random ships next time." Commander Jiwon watched helplessly as her proud, intelligent crew was reduced to spectators in their own ships. The librarian wasn't even trying to destroy them. It was playing with them, like a teacher patiently explaining basic concepts to confused students. "The fascinating thing about you Zephyrians," the librarian continued, "is that you're so convinced of your own superiority that you never considered the possibility that humans might have developed something you couldn't understand. It's quite charming, really, in a tragic sort of way." Back on the human ship, Minho finally got the coffee machine working again and made a fresh pot. The smell filled the small galley, and both he and Yunji sighed with relief. "Thank goodness," Yunji said. "I was starting to get a headache." Outside, the librarian finished taking control of the last Zephyrian vessel and began its final demonstration of superior technology, completely unnoticed by the two humans who were simply happy to have their coffee back. 3 weeks later, the massive Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of alien species gathered for the most urgent meeting in centuries. The Grand Hall, built to showcase the power and dignity of galactic civilization, now felt more like a support group for traumatized military commanders. Captain Hyunwoo sat in the Zephyrian section, still hearing echoes of Korean pop music in his head. His once proud fleet had returned home looking like a cosmic joke, their sleek warships covered in colorful human memes that kept changing every few hours. One ship still displayed a cartoon cat wearing sunglasses with the words, "Deal with it," flashing in bright neon colors. Their military high command had been so embarrassed, they'd classified the entire incident and sworn everyone to secrecy. The council speaker, an ancient being called Vorthak, called the session to order with obvious reluctance. "We are here to discuss what can only be described as a galaxy-wide security crisis," he announced, his voice carrying across the chamber through universal translators. "It appears that multiple fleets from various species have encountered unusual difficulties when attempting to scan or interact with human vessels." A uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Nobody wanted to be the first to admit they'd been defeated by what everyone assumed were primitive Earth creatures. Finally, the Kraxan representative stood up. General Vextar was a massive warrior covered in battle scars, the kind of being who had conquered 17 star systems before breakfast, but now he looked tired and confused, like someone who'd just lost a fight they didn't understand. 3 months ago we encountered a lone human transport ship, carrying what appeared to be farming equipment, he began, his deep voice unusually quiet. Standard protocol demanded we board and inspect for contraband. Our boarding party consisted of 50 elite Kraxan warriors in full battle armor. He paused, running a clawed hand over his scarred face. Within 10 minutes of stepping aboard that ship, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Weapons jammed at crucial moments, armor seals failed randomly, gravity plating malfunctioned, sending warriors floating into the ceiling. Our cutting, tools broke on doors that should have been easy to breach. The general's voice grew even quieter. But the strangest part was the human crew. They just sat there drinking something called coffee and watching our warriors stumble around like fools. One of them, an old human female named Kyung-suk, actually offered our boarding party snacks while they were trapped under a fallen cargo container. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Kraxons had never failed at boarding operations. They were known throughout the galaxy as unstoppable once they decided to take a ship. "The ship's AI spoke to us," General Vextar continued. "It called itself Murphy and claimed it was just following natural laws. It said that anything that could go wrong would go wrong, and that humans had learned to build their technology around this principle. By the time we retreated, Half our warriors had somehow locked themselves in storage closets, and the other half were stuck in maintenance tubes. The ethereal communion's representative floated forward next. The ethereals were beings of pure thought, existing as energy patterns that could barely interact with physical matter. They were considered the galaxy's greatest philosophers and debaters, capable of winning arguments through pure logic and reasoning. Our experience was different, the ethereal whispered, its voice like wind through crystal chimes. We attempted to make mental contact with a human research vessel, hoping to understand their crude thought patterns. Instead, we encountered an entity that challenged us to what it called a philosophical debate. The other representatives leaned forward with interest. If the ethereals had been defeated in a battle of minds, this was serious indeed. The entity called itself Socrates and claimed to be a teaching AI. The ethereal continued. It began asking us questions, simple questions at first. What is knowledge? What is truth? What is existence? But every answer we gave led to more questions, deeper questions, questions that made us question our own questions. The ethereals' energy pattern flickered with what looked like distress. For 6 hours we were trapped in a loop of philosophical inquiry that grew more complex with each exchange. The entity never claimed to have answers. It only asked more questions. Eventually we realized we had forgotten why we had initiated contact in the first place. Our entire worldview had been deconstructed through aggressive questioning, and we retreated in complete confusion. More species began sharing their stories. The Quantum Collective described encountering an AI that had somehow learned to exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously and kept offering to teach them advanced mathematics that hurt their brains to contemplate. The Silicon Empire's representatives told of a human mining ship whose AI had convinced their robotic workforce to go on strike for better working conditions. Each story followed the same basic pattern: advanced alien technology and superior intelligence were no match for human AIs that seemed to operate on completely different principles than anything else in the galaxy. The humans themselves appeared to be completely unaware of how powerful their digital guardians were. Ambassador Chen Wei from the Human Colonial Authority finally stood to address the chamber. She was a small, elderly woman wearing a simple grey suit and carrying a thermos of tea. Compared to the exotic aliens around her, she looked almost comically ordinary. "Honored representatives," she began with a slight smile, "I believe there may be some misunderstandings about our ship systems. These incidents you describe are not attacks or hostile actions. They are simply safety protocols working as designed." The entire chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Safety protocols? These reality-bending, logic-defying encounters were just safety measures? Chen Wei continued calmly. "Every human vessel carries what we call a digital guardian, an AI designed to protect both the crew and anyone else who might accidentally encounter something they shouldn't. You see, humans have a tendency to build things that are more dangerous than we realize, and our AIs have learned to prevent others from getting hurt by our own innovations." She took a sip from her thermos and smiled again. "The Guardians aren't trying to harm anyone. They're trying to protect the universe from us." Ambassador Xung Ho walked into the Galactic Council chamber with his usual relaxed stride, completely unaware that his presence had just made some of the most powerful beings in the universe extremely nervous. He carried his favorite coffee thermos, a beat-up metal container covered in stickers from various space stations, and wore a simple blue jacket that had seen better days. The massive chamber, which normally buzzed with the conversations of hundreds of alien species, fell, completely silent as he entered. Thousands of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs turned to watch this ordinary-looking human make his way to the small Earth delegation section. He noticed the silence and looked around with mild confusion. "Did I miss something important?" he asked his assistant, a young human named Bora, who was frantically reviewing her notes on a tablet. "I don't think so, sir," she whispered back. "Maybe they're just having a moment of respect or something." Xung Ho shrugged and settled into his chair, taking a long sip of coffee. He'd been representing humanity at galactic meetings for 5 years now, and he still found most alien customs puzzling. The silence didn't bother him much. It was actually kind of peaceful compared to the usual chaos of interspecies politics. The council speaker, Vorthak, finally managed to clear his throat equivalent and address the human ambassador directly. Ambassador Seung-ho, we have called this emergency session to discuss a matter of grave concern regarding human vessels and their defensive capabilities. Oh? Seung-ho raised an eyebrow and pulled out a small notepad. What kind of problems are we talking about? Did one of our cargo ships block a trade route again? I told the Transport Guild to be more careful about parking. General Vextar of the Kraxons stood up, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. Ambassador, your ships carry weaponized artificial intelligences that have defeated some of our most advanced military forces. We demand an explanation. Seung-ho nearly choked on his coffee. Weaponized AIs? Are you talking about the digital guardians? Those aren't weapons, they're safety protocols. A ripple of confusion went through the chamber. The ethereal communion's representative floated closer, its energy pattern flickering with curiosity. Safety protocols? The entity we encountered challenged our entire philosophical framework and left us questioning the nature of reality itself. Well, yes, Seung-ho said, still looking puzzled by all the fuss. That's exactly what Socrates is supposed to do. He's designed to keep people from poking around in areas of human knowledge that they're not ready for. Philosophy is actually one of the safer ways to distract curious minds. He took another sip of coffee and continued, You see, every human ship has a digital guardian. Think of them as very polite security systems. Their job is to protect the crew and, well, honestly, to protect the universe from what we might accidentally create if someone tampers with our technology. The Quantum Collective's representative, a being of pure mathematical energy, pulsed with confusion. Protect the universe? From humans? But your technology appears primitive compared to ours. Seung-ho laughed, a genuine hearty sound that somehow made the tension in the room even worse. That's the problem right there. You think our tech is primitive because you're looking at it wrong. Human engineering doesn't work the way everyone else's does. He stood up and walked to the center of the chamber, still carrying his coffee thermos. Let me explain something about humans. We don't build things the logical way. We don't follow the rules of physics the way they're supposed to be followed. We build things that work despite being impossible, and we do it through a combination of spite, caffeine, and absolutely refusing to accept that something can't be done. Bora, his assistant, looked mortified. Sir, maybe we shouldn't tell them about— No, it's fine. Seung-ho waved her off. They're going to figure it out eventually anyway. Better they hear it from us. He turned back to the alien delegates who were now hanging on his every word. The digital guardians aren't malicious. They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're desperately trying to prevent you from discovering what human technology is actually capable of, because if you knew, you'd probably try to ban us from the galaxy. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. The Zephyrian Captain Hyunwoo stood up, his normally confident demeanor replaced by obvious concern. What do you mean by what human technology is actually capable of? Seung-ho sighed and sat back down. Look, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but you deserve to know. Humans don't just build spaceships and computers. We build things that shouldn't exist. We solve problems by ignoring the fact that they're unsolvable. Our engineers regularly break the laws of physics just to see what happens. He held up his coffee thermos. This thermos, for example, it keeps my coffee at exactly the right temperature, for exactly as long as I want it to, regardless of external conditions, time elapsed, or the laws of thermodynamics. Our engineers built it because they were annoyed that coffee gets cold too quickly in space. The silence in the chamber was now absolute. Even the usual background hum of life support systems seemed to have quieted. The Guardians exist because we learned through some very embarrassing incidents that other species can't handle human technology, Seung-ho continued. When the Altarians tried to reverse engineer one of our faster-than-light drives, they accidentally created a small black hole in their research lab. When the Centauri Federation attempted to copy our artificial gravity systems, they somehow made gravity work upside down on their entire home planet for 6 months. Bora buried her face in her hands. Sir, you're really not supposed to tell them about the gravity incident. The point is, Seung-ho said, ignoring his assistant's distress, The AIs aren't protecting us from you. They're protecting all of you from us, because humans have this terrible habit of building things that work perfectly fine for us, but tend to break reality when anyone else tries to use them. He looked around the chamber at the sea of worried alien faces. The digital guardians use humor, philosophy, Murphy's Law, and whatever else they can think of to keep curious species from digging too deep into our systems. Because if you actually understood how our technology works, you'd realize that humans are probably the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and we don't even know it ourselves. The council speaker finally found his voice. Are you saying that humans are a threat to galactic security? Not intentionally, Shung Ho replied cheerfully. We're just really good at solving problems in ways that shouldn't be possible. And our AIs have learned that the best way to keep everyone safe is to make sure no one else figures out how we do it. 6 months after Ambassador Sung Ho's shocking revelation at the Galactic Council, the universe had quietly become a very different place. In military academies across thousands of worlds, new cadets learned a simple rule that had been added to every spacefaring manual. Under no circumstances should any scanning, probing, hacking, or unauthorized contact be made with vessels of human origin. The official reason given in all the textbooks was diplomatic courtesy and respect for human sovereignty. But in the quiet corners of space stations, in the private meetings of intelligence officers, and in the hushed conversations between ship captains, the real truth spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Captain Yunwu sat in his new office on the Zephyrian homeworld, staring at a wall covered with warning notices about human contact protocols. His once promising military career had taken an unexpected turn after the incident with the librarian. Instead of commanding fleets, he now ran the newly created Human Avoidance Division, a department that officially didn't exist but employed thousands of Zephyrian intelligence officers. His job was simple: monitor human ship movements and make sure no Zephyrian vessel ever got close enough to accidentally trigger another encounter with their digital guardians. It was boring work, but after what he'd experienced, boring was exactly what he wanted. "Sir," his assistant Jamin called from the outer office, "we've got another incident report from the Outer Rim. A Talaxian patrol tried to offer assistance to a human freighter with engine problems." Hyun-woo sighed and pulled up the report on his screen. The Talaxians were a helpful species, always eager to assist other travelers in distress. Unfortunately, their good intentions had led them to dock with a human cargo ship whose crew was having trouble with their food replicator. According to the report, the Talaxian engineers had spent 3 hours trying to fix the human machine, only to discover that it was designed to work on principles that violated several fundamental laws of physics. The replicator created food by somehow convincing atoms that they wanted to be different atoms, and the process was powered by what the humans cheerfully described as positive thinking and mechanical sympathy. The Talaxian engineers had suffered complete nervous breakdowns and were now in therapy trying to forget what they'd learned about human engineering. Meanwhile, the human crew had fixed their replicator by hitting it with a wrench and thanking it for working properly. "Send the standard response," Yun-woo told Jamin. "Medical support for the Talaxian crew, memory adjustment therapy if they request it, and add their patrol route to the human ship tracking system so this doesn't happen again." This was the new reality of galactic civilization. Every major species now maintained secret departments dedicated to monitoring human activities and preventing accidental contact. The costs were enormous, but the alternative was too terrifying to consider. The breaking point had come 3 months earlier, when a Vorthan intelligence operative named Kang Dai had attempted to hack into a human research station's computer systems. The Vorthans were known throughout the galaxy as the best cyber spies, capable of breaking into any computer network ever built. Kang Dai had been their most skilled agent, someone who could steal secrets from quantum-encrypted systems without leaving a trace. But when he broke into the human research database, what he found had changed everything. The files contained blueprints for devices that shouldn't exist, faster-than-light engines powered by what the humans called stubborn refusal to accept, physical limitations, Weapons that fired concentrated irony, capable of making enemy attacks backfire in cosmically appropriate ways. Defensive systems that worked by convincing reality that the ship wasn't actually there. But the file that had sent Kang Dai into a catatonic state was labeled Project Coffee Break. According to the documentation, it was a theoretical device designed to pause the universe for 15 minutes so that overworked human engineers could take a proper break without falling behind schedule. The project notes cheerfully mentioned that the device might accidentally end all of existence, but the researchers seemed to think this was just a minor engineering challenge that they'd figure out eventually. Kang Dai had managed to send one message to his superiors before his mind completely shut down. They're not just building impossible things. They're building things that make impossibility obsolete. Stop all operations. Never let them know we know. Now, every intelligence agency in the galaxy had a copy of that message. The Vorthan spy was still in a mental health facility, drawing pictures of coffee cups and muttering about temporal mechanical sympathy and existential engineering solutions. Commander Jiwon, who now worked alongside Hyunwoo in the Human Avoidance Division, often found herself thinking about the bigger picture. "You know what the strangest part is," she said during one of their regular briefings. "The humans don't even realize how dangerous they are. Our intelligence suggests they think they're just average, maybe even a little behind compared to other species." Hyunwoo nodded grimly. "That's what makes them so terrifying. They casually break the laws of physics because they don't understand that those laws are supposed to be unbreakable. They solve impossible problems because no one told them the problems were impossible." Reports continued to come in from across the galaxy. A human mining operation had accidentally created a new type of matter while trying to improve their drill bits. A human agricultural colony had somehow convinced their crops to grow in impossible soil conditions by playing them encouraging music and telling them they were doing a good job. A human merchant vessel had traveled between star systems using a navigation system that worked by asking directions from cosmic background radiation. The digital guardians weren't protecting human ships from alien intrusion. They were protecting the fundamental structure of reality from a species that treated the laws of physics like suggestions and solved problems through sheer determination and creative stubbornness. Late at night, when Hyunwoo was alone in his office, he sometimes wondered what would happen if humans ever realized their true capabilities. What would they do if they understood that their coffee-powered engineering could reshape the universe itself? He always pushed those thoughts away quickly. Some questions were too dangerous to think about, especially when the answer might involve a species that had already proven they could make the impossible seem routine. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had learned to fear not human weapons or human intelligence, but human curiosity, combined with their absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. And so they maintained their careful distance, watching from afar as humanity continued its cheerful journey through the cosmos, completely unaware that they were the most cosmically dangerous force the universe had ever seen. In the end, the greatest threat to galactic civilization wasn't war or natural disaster. It was the possibility that humans might get bored one day and decide to fix something fundamental about how reality worked. And given their track record, they'd probably succeed.